Coming up, former senior advisor for the Trump and Bush 43 administrations, Christian Whiton, talks about where we stand on more stimulus negotiations and if we even need more. Stimulus showdown. The push for $2,000 checks now in the hands of the Senate as the approved $600 checks are already on the way for qualifying Americans. Joining me now, former President Trump and George W. Bush State Department senior advisor, former North Korean Human Rights Deputy Special Envoy Christian Whiton. Christian, where does this go from here, do you think?
Well, on the current track, the Senate's just not going to do anything. Mitch McConnell says he doesn't have a path forward. Of course, he does have a path forward. He's the Senate Majority Leader, and Democrats, as we've seen in the House, are more than willing to spend more money. But right now, he thinks that the politics are such that he can get away with really taking no action. Basically, all this Congress is going to do on Saturday, as your correspondent reported, is to override the veto of the defense authorization bill, and that's it.
I want to bring Steve Moore in here, Christian, on this question, because the Wall Street Journal writes an editorial today saying that the House bill for $2,000 would actually provide benefits to a family of five making up to $350,000 a year. And it would, in fact, add a lot more to the national debt. It would add almost $464 billion in addition to the $600 checks that were passed. So the question is, because, again, they're trying to paint Mitch McConnell as if he's some Grinch, some Scrooge, some whatever, you know, fill in the blank. But, again, is this money well spent at this point? Because, again, this is something that Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer are in favor of.
Well, you know, Dagan, Casey Mulligan, who's the University of Chicago economist, probably the top labor economist in the country, and I have a analysis that's coming out that shows that this bill, the bill that has already passed, is not stimulus. It will end up costing the economy about 4 million jobs over the next 6 months, and that's because of the big increase in unemployment benefits of $300 a week and the increase in food stamps and these payments of $600 and maybe going to $2,000, probably going to $2,000 at some point, are negative for the economy because they actually disincentivize work. And so these are really negative. And I've got to hand it to Mitch McConnell. I mean, this guy is the greatest parliamentarian in Senate history. And he really, twisted the Democrats into a pretzel with putting on liability reform and some other things like an investigation into the election. They were kind of poison pills that Democrats could not live with, and that's killed it for now. But Dagan, I guarantee you, basically the first day that Joe Biden is president, if not before, you're going to see this $600 go up to $2,000, and it's helicopter money. It doesn't stimulate anything.
Well, I will point out, which we talked about yesterday, the savings rate in this country right now is close to 13%. Right. On average. In the last several years, it's been about 8%. I want to ask Christian about the Senate inching forward on an override of President Trump's defense bill veto, which was passed by the House earlier this week. Speaking of Mitch McConnell, he was on the Senate floor yesterday. Listen to this.
The Senate will not let our national security be shoved off course, certainly not by senators who have spent years, literally years, trying to gut America's capabilities while our adversaries continue ramping up. The Senate will stay on this important bill until we complete it one way or another.
And this gets back to Senator Bernie Sanders saying he's going to filibuster the vote if the stimulus checks are not increased first. A final Senate vote is expected Saturday or over the weekend. Christian, your reaction to the state of this defense bill override?
Well, it's a lot like the omnibus. It's a process that has been so mismanaged throughout this Congress, and it's been larded up with a bunch of stuff that doesn't have a lot to do with defense spending. There's, frankly, very woke legislation introduced by the Massachusetts senator to rename bases named after Confederate officers. I have no idea why a Republican Senate thinks we should be revising American history at the point of a gun held by left-wing revisionists. There's also a provision in there that says that the president can't withdraw troops from Europe. It's blatantly unconstitutional. The president's the commander-in-chief. Obviously, that involves whether or not to dispatch troops abroad. And it also why, 75 years after they got there, do we need U.S. troops in Germany? It's 30 years after the end of the Soviet Union. Incidentally, Germans pay a pittance on defense. They screw us on trade. Why are we there? At any rate, it's a shame. You know, this Congress is going to go out overriding Trump on defense and spending, as Steve pointed out, an enormous amount of money on stimulus that isn't going to work. And you have to wonder if the Republican Party wants to go back to the bad old days before 2016, where it was the Chamber of Commerce party instead of what has emerged since then.
In breaking this morning, I want to get your reaction to this. Hong Kong's highest court is sending media tycoon and a friend of this program, Jimmy Lai, back to jail as he fights national security charges. The court ruling that Jimmy Lai must return to custody until at least February, while judges consider the government's appeal against his bail. Christian, your reaction to this and kind of the bigger picture of Lai's treatment by basically communist China.
Right, and Lai is the founder of Apple Daily, which is sort of like the New York Post of Hong Kong and Taiwan. It's a pro-democracy and anti-communist paper that's very popular. That's why they're going after him. And it just is symbolic of the erosion of the rule of law in China. China's breaking promises they made in preserving Hong Kong's autonomy. But I think more broadly, what you're looking at is China is going to test Joe Biden. China's tested every new president of this century, and it really expects a lot from Biden. Biden was sort of the chief advocate of the globalist view that trade with China would tame China. It didn't work out that way. So, you know, if you're going to have John Kerry at the cabinet table, the National Security Council table, arguing to go soft on China in exchange for a climate deal, hopefully Biden has some wherewithal to resist that, because the Chinese are certainly going to try to corrupt him.
Christian, it was great to see you this morning. We could talk all morning long. We appreciate the few minutes we had. Christian Whiton, Happy New Year.